Are you sacrificing the great for the good? Let's talk about that on today's 10-Minute Talk. Hey, good morning, everybody. My name is Pastor Jay Wentworth, and I'm the lead pastor here at Spirit Alive Church in Yakima, Washington. And welcome to today's 10-Minute Talk. And so I said something yesterday during youth group that really sparked my heart. And this, friends, is something that I probably struggle with more than most people, and that is being too busy. It's quantity over quality. And I think in a lot of areas of our spiritual life, this is what happens. Here's the chief example. Okay, prayer. We tell people to pray all day. We tell people that prayer is just conversation with God. And I don't think there's anything wrong with praying all day. Praying in your car, praying at work, praying while you're doing something, praying while you're sitting at home, talking to God that entire time. And again, there's nothing wrong with that. Literally nothing wrong with that. But the issue is we're being inclusive of God, but we're not being exclusive to God. We're including him in our day, but are we including ourselves in his plan to seek him first, or is he just included and part of our plan for us? And we have this huge quantity of prayer, and we think that makes it a good prayer life. But what it's really about, friends, is quality of prayer. Now, that doesn't mean you pray once a good quality prayer and your day is good. But it means that when you do pray, we need to take the time to really hone in and focus on God. And I think that says a lot about a lot of areas of our life. Another thing that I really thought of was scripture. Some of us have a goal to read maybe a chapter or two a day. And I think that's admirable and I think it's great. But are we just reading it to read it and get it done so we can say we read our chapters so we can speed read through it and read as much as possible? Or are we really taking time to digest that scripture, to study it, to get to know Jesus through his word? Are we doing the good instead of the great? Because, friends, honestly, it would be better for us to read 2 or 3 verses and deep dive study those verses than to read 2 or 3 chapters and just read them. Because we're not retaining anything, we're not learning anything, we're just reaching for the goal of reading as much as we can for that day, checking it off our list, and it becomes the same as eating lunch or going to the bank. It's an errand that we run when really we should be walking with Christ, not running ahead of him. And so I have a couple pieces of scripture to look at with you today. Let's check those out. And the first piece of scripture is going to be Mark 8:36 and 37. And it says this: "For what does it profit a man to gain the whole world and forfeit his soul? For what can a man give in return for his soul?" You see, when we go out and we try to do all these things, we're super busy, we have all these accomplishments in the world, and we get all these awesome things done. We are good at sports. We have a lot of friends. We go to a lot of social gatherings. We go to church every Sunday. We go to youth group. We go to charity, we serve in the community, and we do a million things at once. And we're pretty good at all of them. But we are great at none of them. And that, my friends, is the problem. You see, God doesn't call humans to do a million things. You'll notice in the New Testament, Jesus just says that there's the Great Commandment and the Great Commission, which really focus on two things: loving others, loving God, and discipleship. And I think, friends, that we're overcomplicating it with our busy schedules and all these things we need to do. Now, church has to be a priority because that's God. Reading scripture has to be a priority. But we can also overdo godly things. And taking all those things together with our worldly things, we're trying to get ahead in the world instead of getting ahead for eternity. And friends, it doesn't work. Okay, it's the same reason I told the teens last night, hey, you should not be discipling 9 or 10 people at once. I would say 3 to 5 max, and that is if you are a super social person. But for some of us, it's okay to just be discipling 1 or 2 people at a time so that we can do it great. Because friends, you can disciple 9 or 10 people and you can do good at it. But it's either going to backfire or it's going to take a really long time and consume you, trying to get those people to have a relationship with Jesus Christ, because they can only get a small piece of you, and you are their example for Jesus. And if they can only get a small piece of you, then they're only getting a small piece of Jesus. And it's good, a good piece, but it's not great. It's not our best. And right now we are sacrificing great for good. Our next scripture says this. In Psalm 90:12, so teach us to number our days, that we may get a heart of wisdom. To number our days, to pay attention to every single day and be wise. If we pay attention every single day of what we really need to be doing, is what this psalm is saying. What really matters in that day. And if we really take a step back and look at all the things that are going on in our lives, are we overdoing it to the point where we have a bunch of good things and almost no great things? And what may be even worse, friend, is when you start cutting good things, one of the first good things you cut is God. Because you're now so focused on the world and getting ahead in the world because of all those good things that were getting you ahead in the world, you keep the one thing to be great in that will get you better off in the world and further away from God. And friends, I see this as a church too. We recently did a church survey and I had a comment section on there on what the church could do better. And there are some great suggestions on there, some great ideas, some great thoughts. But there are a lot of things about adding this, adding this, adding this. Well, friends, as a smaller church, if we continue to add programs and programs and programs and events and this, and we do so many that they all just become good. And sometimes even just average. They're just okay. And they don't really relate to our mission anymore as a church. Instead, friends, we should do a few things and we should do them great. You'll notice that Jesus, the Son of God, didn't go around and heal and forgive everybody he walked by. Instead, he did the ones that mattered the most, that could have the most influence. He did the great ones. He didn't have 1,000 disciples, even though he was entirely capable of doing so. He had 12. And if Jesus only had 12, What makes us think we can have even half of what Jesus had? We can't. We have to stop substituting the good for the great. We have to stop overdoing everything in our lives, because the great is getting weeded out and the good is taking its place. And 100 good things don't even come close to 2 or 3 great things. And friends, Jesus said they will do greater things than I did. So let's focus on that. Let's get ourselves narrowed down to the great things that bring us closer to Christ. Have a great day, friends.